let me go to Jed York here. What is Jed's role in the Niners offseason strategy? I know you've been talking about this a little bit throughout the week. I have a hard time even summing up Jed or Parag's contribution in this whole thing because they're very cloak and dagger and they try to keep their business kind of private, but it's pretty clear that money and dollars play some significant role in how they construct their team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going
to compare
him to Eddie. I mean, you've been watching the Niners a lot longer than me. I was born in '88. I didn't live through I missed the '80s. I lived through the '90s. I have a sense of Eddie DeBartolo. My dad covered Eddie DeBartolo. I've talked to him about this. My sense is the way the season ended, losing the way they did in the championship game when they were winning and they'd beaten that team 6 times in a row. I'm thinking Eddie would have been out of his skull after the game. Probably would have fired Kyle Shanahan and hired him back the next day, stuff like that.
Right.
But he would have had a real urgency on the entire organization. Like, that was unacceptable. We cannot miss opportunities like that. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Where I don't, to me, he was a competitor on the level of Bill Walsh, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana. I don't see a competitor in Jed York. I see a competent financial analyst with a really smart friend in Parag, and they have different goals. I mean, I think Jed was happy with last season. I think, what a great ending considering how it started. And I think there was a total air of complacency in that organization this offseason. Like, hey, we're good. A couple plays go different. Who's to say we're not the best team? I mean, we're better than the Rams. The Rams, they won the Super Bowl. We beat the Rams. So, there is very little urgency. And I think that is the tone that Jed York sets. He is not the same guy as Eddie DeBartolo. It starts right. I mean, my dad was saying after losses, when the Niners were good, Eddie DeBartolo would come down after the game and rip phones out of the wall in the locker room and run and walk around in a crazed state like he was holding a severed head. That kind of guy. That's Eddie. And that's not. So I think it starts with the tone he sets.
Well, first of all, let's make it perfectly clear. They're not the same guy as far as the buck stopped with Eddie. The buck doesn't stop with Jed.
It's a great.
Doesn't stop with Jed. Look, when the Niners lost 4 in a row this year, what happened in that going into that 5th week?
His dad showed up.
Dr. John York showed up in practice.
Right. That's a great.
And so Dr. John York is really the heavy here. I like Jed. I think Jed really badly wants to win. I think Eddie D needed to win.
Thank you. And that's a good distinction.
And the other thing is Eddie D. The most I interviewed Eddie D when he came back to Candlestick and one of those they honored him, and he viewed his bottom line for success was one and the same with the fans' bottom line. So it was all about winning. The year the Niners won the '84 Super Bowl, they lost $10 million as a franchise, and yet they viewed it as a success. Would Jed view a season as successful if they won the Super Bowl but lost, I don't know, by comparison, maybe $10 million now, maybe $30 or $40 million?
They would never let it happen.
No,
it would never.
They wouldn't let it happen. But I mean, they wouldn't view it as a success.
No,
they would view it as the price of doing business. But it's not. Eddie D was all in on success on the field and success at the bottom line. You wanted both, but you preferred success on the bottom line, but you needed success on the field. Now I think they need success on the bottom line, and they prefer success on the field.
And with Jed, he's a financial analyst. Remember, he came in, he took over for DeBartolo, and their whole thing was the DeBartolos hadn't really figured out the salary cap yet. And so Jed and Parag come in, and they get the Niners under the cap, out of cap hell. That was 20 years ago. The Rams, no one cares about the cap like that anymore. Every team that wins a Super Bowl makes a big push that year. The Rams, the Bucks, and meanwhile, the Niners are stuck in 2007 because that's what Jed knows. He's a financial analyst. So what he does is he builds a portfolio. We're going to have Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. We're not going to commit to one stock. No, we're going to have a portfolio of lots of things. And we're going to build for the present, but also build for the future. Nah, man, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. What you're going to do is be second best at best or third best. You're going to kind of hover around contention in the good years. But since you're never really committed to that moment, you never really pivot and say, this is our moment. This is our window. Let's freaking the way Eddie would. You just keep doing business as usual. That sets the tone for the last 15 years in this organization.
Eddie was about the Lombardi Trophy. Jed is about filling Levi's Stadium. So
Thank
how
you.
do you fill Levi's Stadium? You stay relevant.
Yes.
If you stay relevant, you
Yes.
fill the stadium.
Yes.
So relevancy is what Jed's after. Eddie was after Lombardi's. I really
He wants
believe that.
he wants relevancy, and he wants what's the word? Uh he was a laughing stock 5 years ago. He ran off Harbaugh, and then he fired 3 coaches in 3 years. Credibility and relevancy. Like, Shanahan gives him credibility. So Shanahan has basically a lifetime contract with this team. He's not going to change that. So he has those 2 things. Eddie wanted much more. Eddie needed to be number one, the way Joe needed to be number one. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
no,
how I feel.
I totally agree. To me, there's only one Eddie D, and his passion fueled this franchise.
Yes.
Jed will spend money, but he's not Eddie D, and nobody would say that he is. But if you really look at it, he's also, the buck doesn't stop with him, and there's a
That's
huge
a great
difference
point.
between Eddie D grabbing the microphone at the post-game presser, going, Mark Trestman, yeah, he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jed would never inject himself into that situation the same way. So that I view as a positive, but he doesn't have the same clout. He doesn't have the same, he's not the same guy. He's not the same role as Eddie D.
One narrative I can't stand is that Eddie was just a product of a pre-salary cap era. He threw a lot of money around. Once the salary cap came around, he was a dinosaur. And the Niners are actually in better hands with the Yorks now because they know how to navigate this era of football. First of all, Eddie won a Super Bowl with the salary cap in '94.
That's
He
right.
was only around for 7 years. And I'm thinking he probably would have figured it out. For as great as the Niners tiptoe around the salary cap with Jed and Parag, no Super Bowls. So I don't know. I still think Eddie was demonstrably a better owner than Jed.
And look at the Rams. What did the Rams do this year? They did the exact same thing that the Niners did in 1994. They went all in on winning the Super Bowl this year. That was their game plan. And it takes that level of commitment to get it done, in my opinion. Everybody strives to win the Super Bowl, but if you're all in, there's a big difference between all in and not all in. The Rams were all in. The Niners wanted to improve their quarterback situation, improve their roster, but it's all about kind of relevancy long term for the future. The Rams said, we need a Super Bowl. We need it now. It's going to be in our stadium. We got to be there. We got to win it. And look at the difference.
Look at the rest of the league. It's a trend now.
Yeah.
What are teams doing now? The Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel goes to Miami first year, and he's like, you know what? All in. Kyle's in year 6, like maybe next year. Maybe year 7. That's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, to me, that is the difference between where they're at. They were in the dark for so long that now it's like relevancy is fine, and we'll get it done along the way. But I think that you need to strive more than, let's be relevant and roll the dice.